what's going on, everyone? Welcome to a new episode of Mostly Wrong Opinions. I am Tyrone. That is Devin. Wait! Before we get started on this Will Smith film, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right down there. It really will help us out. Now, this is the story of Emancipation.
I will come back to you!
This film is following a slave, a very important slave, by the name of Peter.
Yeah, Peter is known for his photo, a very famous photograph of his back and the whippings and the scars he had on his back. And so they've made a whole movie about it, and it's starring Will Smith. And Peter starts off on a cotton field, and he is stolen away from his family, forcibly, obviously, and taken to go work on a railroad. And this railroad work is very difficult. It's very violent. It's inhumane. And meanwhile, back at the plantation, his original plantation, his family's getting split up because they're selling off the mom. While all this is happening, the Emancipation Proclamation becomes public knowledge.
So I issue Proclamation 95.
The hell's that mean?
Lincoln freed the slaves.
What?
And
Yes.
he is essentially working even though Lincoln has declared slaves free, slavery illegal. But of course, we know that the United States was cut in half, so that, the Emancipation Proclamation, ironically, was more symbolic at that time because the South was a whole different country with a different president, That's what the whole war is about, you know what I'm saying? And so Peter hears this, and he's like, we got to make sure the North wins. I cannot stay here. This is not a thing I can do. So when he finds the opportunity to escape, he does. And his plan is to go to Baton Rouge and find Lincoln's army and
Get home to his wife.
Yeah, get home to his wife. So this movie is made by Antoine Fuqua, which is quite the surprise to me because Antoine Fuqua has done at least one good movie, and that's Training Day. But this movie, I think, is a travesty. This is
Boom bombs.
This is a really, really bad film. I would put this at perhaps the worst film I've seen this year. And I watched Blonde. Daddy. And this movie was bad.
You watched all of Blonde?
Okay, I watched most of Blonde in the regular speed, and then after that, I did it to time, 1.5 time. You know what I'm saying? I sped it up. I wanted to stop this film early. I was like, I need to be more open. I've always been like, I don't want to see slave movies. I've seen a lot of them, and black pain movies. It's not my forte. It's not my taste.
I get it. I'm there with you, man.
That doesn't mean I haven't liked some of them, right? I think 12 Years a Slave is a very good movie.
Yes.
But it's not something I want to sit down and watch. You know what I'm saying? With some popcorn. That's not my type of thing.
Right.
But this movie was ugly in more than one way. First, it's physically ugly. They've done this color treatment on the film.
I like that.
Where it's not quite black and white. It's just extremely desaturated. But then every once in a while, there's a random pop of color. So sometimes there's green, sometimes there's red. This to me reads student film. I went when I was in class. We had almost half our movies looked like this, and that is to me as amateur hour. I just cannot believe it. And for me as someone who works in the visual medium, when you're going to erase color, I feel like we need a reason why. That's got to be motivated by something. Why? Why take a tool out your toolbox? Why? For what? And to look like that? To look like a piece of garbage? So physically, the movie's ugly. But
next.
But from a story perspective, it's also ugly. This movie is grim. It is brutal. It is violent. It is gory. And the movie revels in it. The movie licks the blood off the floor type of gore. There's a character who gets attacked by dogs. And then he is shot. And then he's eaten by alligators. and you're like, why? What did we learn from that? Did we learn that slavery is bad? Is that what we learned? You know what I'm saying? I think I knew that before I turned the movie on. So why do we need to do that? I don't understand.
They chop a dude's head off. You know, and they're putting them on spikes.
Yeah, their heads on spikes. They cut off a guy's head, like right there, sawing his head off. And I'm like, for what? Like, okay, I get it. You want to show that these guys are brutal. There are better ways to do that. There are more effective ways. There are scarier ways. There are actually nastier ways to do it other than just pointing your camera at the gore. There's this really great scene in 12 Years a Slave where our main character is being hung, right? And he's fighting for his life, but he's out of focus. Because a guy getting hung in the front yard is just a Tuesday, right? And that felt so much more brutal and downright evil than the nasty gore fest bloodlust that happened in this film. There's no artistry in this. It's just nasty. This whole movie I thought was amateur hour. And I'll be blunt, I think Antoine Fuqua should be embarrassed. I think Will Smith should be humiliated. I did not like this film. And it makes so much sense to me why I didn't go to the theater, because who the would want to watch this?
Okay, thank you. Good night. That's all our time.
Also, perhaps the reason why the movie's black and white is because it's so gory and so nasty that they couldn't get it by the censors. So they desaturated it so that the image could get by the censors. What message are we trying to portray? What are we trying to tell the audience by this level of gore? And again, if the message is slavery is bad, like that is such a rudimentary, elementary base idea that I think everyone knew before we started. Like I don't get it. I don't get this movie.
It's about tearing the will of one man, the will of one man to make it back to his family, no matter what. Because that speech that Will Smith did when he met the general, he was in tears.
Right. And that speech was absolutely stupid. He's like, they broke my body in more ways than you could imagine, but they did not break me.
They break the bones in my body more times than I can count. But they never break me.
And I was like, you know what would be great? To see them breaking your body. Instead of them telling us, they could have shown us that. But all the violence happens to literally everyone else but him.
You stop when I say stop.
And then he's supposed to give this speech about something we never saw. Like, I don't understand this. I don't get it.
He was depicted as a smart slave, a person who knew the ways of the world, and he was cunning, and he could fight.
And this was another thing when I was watching the movie. They're like, we've got to get to Lincoln. We got to get to Baton Rouge. And so one of the slaves was like, well, damn, where's Baton Rouge? And Will Smith is like, that way. And I'm like, how do you know? Like, why do you know that? And I'm like, they're going to tell us what he knows. He's got some sort of connect. No. The movie's just like, anyway. And I'm like, how do you know? How does he know? Not only is he a slave, but it's illegal to read and write at the time as a slave. Now maybe he could read and write, maybe he could, some slaves could, but it's illegal to do so. So he would have had to sneak to learn that information. That might have been an interesting sequence where he goes and finds this information somewhere in the house. There's another scene where he's got some onions. He's like, oh, rub some onions all over my body.
And he chewed it up, spit it out, and
the dog can't smell onions. How do you know that? What an interesting thing to learn, right? That would have been cool to see. Somebody, maybe he escaped one time, and I don't know, something. Give me something. Instead, what we got was gore for like 2 hours of gore. Even back in the day when gore movies were popular, like Hostel, even I thought those were fucking stupid.
Hostel.
I'm like, after a while,
Yes,
you get numb to the gore. You get numb to it. I mean, how many rubber legs and rubber heads can you stare at? You know what I mean? How many? And that's what happened in this film. And so the opposite happened. Instead of me being horrified, I'm looking at a man getting decapitated and I'm bored. And I feel like that's like downright immoral. Me and this movie were not on the same page at any point. At some point in the film, I stopped watching the film and just started looking at it. Like my eyes were just pointed at the screen, but I was not actually watching it. I did not like this movie.
I am gonna say that I didn't really like it either. Okay, for all of those reasons. My main thing about why I didn't like it is like, what's the point to this?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they want to raise awareness or tell this incredible story, and it is truly an incredible story about a real life man. And they want everyone to see that, like on the big screen. Like, look at what this is a story about humanity. Look at what this man went through. Look at what he survived. Look what he survived for, because he's doing all this for his wife and for his kids. But the power of that photograph does not come from your knowledge of what he went through. It comes from, ironically, what this movie does not have, and it's your imagination. When you see that photograph, you imagine all the horrors he's been through. You're just like, oh my God, what has this man seen? I don't even want to think about it. You know what I mean? It's like, Lord have mercy. To even look at the scars too closely, you get very emotional. And you don't get emotional because you see him being whipped, right? It's because you didn't see it. It's the things you don't see, the things that are hidden from you. This movie is so explicit in everything that it misses the point of the photograph it's trying to talk about.
It revolves around how Will Smith is escaping and how cunning he is and how smart he is than everyone else.
But that photograph implies all that, right? It's implied that this man is a hard man who's been through some terrible shit. But we don't need to see it in order to understand it. You know what I'm saying? And there is a level of tact that the photograph has that this movie does not. The movie, to me, does not do that photograph any justice. I think it is almost shameful that they did this. I'm embarrassed that this happened. I'm embarrassed that it happened. I'm embarrassed that this movie still came out. Somebody watched this and was like, yeah. And I'm like, no.
Well, the executive producer was like Ice Cube when he was high on Friday. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. If I set aside, let's set aside all my personal feelings about slavery movies, which I don't like, right? Which I tried to do for this film, and just look at this from a movie. Tyrone, in this movie, Will Smith fights an alligator with his bare hands and a knife.
And he wins.
That is so stupid.
Quit hitting yourself. Quit hitting yourself.
I can't even. And that's in a movie about this subject matter? What? That is so lame and tacky. If John Wick fought an alligator, you'd be like, what? You know what I'm saying? But that's John Wick, a fictional character. The movie was just ridiculous. And so then let's set that aside. Okay, let's put that aside. The religious undertones of this film are awkward. They're really awkward. So
God is with you.
Yes.
God is with you.
Yes. Peter is a devout Christian. That's tough because where did he get his Christianity from? Slave owners, right?
Slave owners, man.
So I'm like, but the movie actually, to its credit, it it converses with that, right? There is a character who's like, oh, the Bible says you got to be a good slave or whatever.
Not with eye service, what man pleases, but as the service of Christ, doing the will of God.
You know, so the movie converses with it. It's like, you know, most of these slaves get their religion from their oppressors.
Then there's the guy that just got whipped and beaten and thrown in there, and he was like, Will Smith was like, "Go this with us." And he's like, "What God are you talking about?" And all this stuff.
Stand up. Go, stand up. Stand up and praise your God for all he has done for you. For all of us.
And then Will Smith is like, if you do not have God in your heart, I will pray for you. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I wanted to say. I was like, yo, get that out of my face.
Get that out of my movies. When him and the other three slaves were running away, and they were trying to figure out which way was Baton Rouge, he kept looking up in the sky,
right?
And he kept looking like this little like trying to figure out where it is, like this, this superpower thing,
right?
And he kept looking for birds, and the only thing I can guess that was because they were saying that wherever you hear Lincoln's cannons, that's where you follow. And I don't know if I did an accent right, but
go through the swamp. Follow the sound of Lincoln's cannons.
Is he saying that when the cannons shoot, you see the birds in the same process, that's where you got to go? You don't even know if those birds got startled from somewhere.
See, I kind of had two interpretations about that. There's a point in the film where they're like, how did you get to the swamp? And Peter's like, I know the swamp. So maybe that was him like being one with the swamp, reading signs, understanding which direction he's going. Or, and this is what I thought in the moment, that God was guiding him, and that God was somehow communicating to him what to do and where to go. But yes, Peter has superpowers. Not just the kind that help you fight alligators, but the kind that help you navigate a thick and nasty swamp. He has very literal superpowers. There's a point in the film where he's in danger, and he's like, no, and then the camera cuts to his wife, and his wife's like, and I'm like, does his wife has superpowers too?
He's like, I can feel him.
Your father is alive. And I'm like, what? Yeah, for real, X-Men out here, man. What the heck? Which moves me to my other point. His accent. What accent is
Wait,
Will
I thought it was the accent that he was using in Concussion. That's what I thought.
But this man is supposed to be Haitian, and there are Haitian actors here whose accents sound more authentic. Will Smith, man, he struggled. That accent kicked his ass, dog.
The Lord is my help there. I will look in triumph at my enemies.
Also, before someone says it in the comments about the gore and the nastiness, and the guy getting and the people's heads getting cut off, and I think most people will say, "But Devin, that's what happened in the real world. That's what actually happened. That may be what happened, but that doesn't mean we have to depict it, right?" I think it was Alfred Hitchcock that said a movie is real life with the boring parts cut out.
Life is more sensational. I would say that. How does one describe drama? Drama is life with the dull bits cut out.
So let's cut the things that are not necessary. Yes, I do realize slavery was brutal, but once you've made your point, we can do some snips. And I feel like they made their point very good in the first 10 minutes. After that, we can have a little more tact.
I am here along with you within that. This film was a bad film. But in my terms of it being a bad film, I felt like it just was not needed. We didn't need this story this way. If we were going to tell it, I'd say focus on the man instead of making him like Rambo.
Yeah. I was thinking, how can you fix this film, right? That's also something that goes in my head when I'm watching. I'm like, not that I'm some great filmmaker or some shit, but I'm like, how could I fix this? And I think a lot of it could have been fixed, and most of this movie could have been salvaged in the edit. I think when the dog attacked that guy, the camera should cut, and we should just hear his screams in the background while Will Smith swims away. We don't need it.
But he had to get the information of where he would go, where he was going.
Okay, that scene could have been 3.3 seconds though. We didn't need it to last as long as it did. Also, there's no balance, right? You know another movie, a slave movie that's very gruesome and nasty? That's Django. Django is nasty and gruesome. But you know, it's also balanced by some light moments, right?
Comedy.
It's balanced by comedy. It's balanced by moments of love. It's just light moments. When you paint everything in black, right? I can't see what's happening, right? You become numb to it. So you need some values. You need some spots that are bright and some spots that are dark. But this was all dark.
Let's just go ahead and get into the rating of Emancipation. This film, like say again, was not needed. I don't even remember any of the other characters that was in this film.
Yeah,
Ben
true.
Foster did not seem like Ben Foster. Ben Foster is and almost in every single film, he is one of the most maniacal people. And I feel the evilness within him, the characters that he played. I feel like he was just going through the script.
I think his performance got lost because, yeah, I think his character's supposed to be evil because he kills people brutally and nastily. He talks about how his father killed someone right in front of him when he was a child, someone he loved. But all that gets lost in the black. You know what I mean? When everything's one shade of black, that gets lost. So his evilness didn't stand out from like literally everyone else's.
Right. I'm gonna give this film a D- because I actually did like the color tint of red and green.
Yeah,
just from a visual aspect. Why it was there? Yeah, it was dumb. but see,
you liked it, you know? Yeah, if you liked it. Yeah, for me,
D-. The movie didn't even need to be made.
Gotcha. Personally, I wasn't into the color. I wasn't into the subject matter. I didn't like Will Smith. I don't like these types of movies in general. But I think you can overcome that. I think a good story for me can overcome it. As I've said, I've seen slave movies that I like, but this was not one of them. This movie gets an F for me.
First F of the year.
This is a terrible film. I cannot believe it. And there was, and I don't know if it's still going because this movie is getting ripped apart by the reviews are really bad. So it's getting torn apart. So I don't know if there's still Oscar buzz around this film, but if there is, even that is shameful. And there's nothing in this film worthy of your time, worthy of an award, nothing. Now, what you should do, you should look up that photograph that this film is based on.
Yes.
And if
read about that.
Yes. And if you would like to learn more about that slave whose real name, I'm not really sure what it was, but he was nicknamed Peter for the photograph. If you want to look up more about that slave, my God, the story is incredible. And this film tries to tell it, but it doesn't do it very well. But don't subject yourself to something like this.
I gave this film a D-. Devin gave this film his first F of the year. Would you recommend it?
I would not recommend it.
I do not recommend this film either. Better luck next time, Will Smith. But do you recommend this film? That is most importantly. Get in the comments and let us know what you thought about this and do you recommend people see. And that is our review for Will Smith's Emancipation. Hey, thank you for clicking on this video. I know it was a doozy, wasn't it? But if you can do us a favor, please hit that subscribe button right down there. Our subscriber count has been going up, and it's because of people like you who watch us every single day. Hey, if you like this review, hit that thumbs up, or you can hit that thumbs down, whichever you choose. It is your opinion, but just remember one thing, it is mostly wrong. We will both see you in another video. Bye.